Who's actually going to get the most out of a 49-inch curved KD screen, and who should walk away before spending a few $100s? If you're wondering whether the Samsung Odyssey G93SC is a realistic upgrade for your daily setup or just a flashy eye candy, you're not alone. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through the real-world considerations that usually get lost behind the 240Hz and 0.03 milliseconds headlines. First off, the sheer size of this monitor changes the whole geometry of a typical desk. A 49-inch ultrawide spans roughly the same horizontal field of view as a dual-monitor 27-inch setup, but it does it with a single curved panel that keeps your eyes from hunting between separate screens. In my own workstation, that meant I could keep a spreadsheet on the far left, a coding IDE in the center, and a reference browser on the right without turning my head more than a few degrees. For anyone who already lives in a multi-monitor configuration and hates the bezels, the G93SC feels like an instant simplifier. But if you're limited to a small desk or a cramped apartment, the footprint of the stand alone can dominate the space and force you to rethink your entire layout. The KD panel is where Samsung really leans into its ultimate experience claim. In practice, that translates to deep blacks and vibrant colors that stay consistent across the whole width. I tested a few HDR games and noticed that dark scenes kept their detail without the glow you often see on LED backlit panels. That same consistency helped when I switched to non-gaming tasks. Watching a movie on a 4K Blu-ray looked almost cinematic, and photo editing in Lightroom didn't suffer from uneven color shifts. If you work with visual media or just want a screen that feels alive for movies, that OLED edge is a genuine advantage. On the flip side, OLED does have a reputation for image retention if static UI elements sit for hours. I kept my taskbar and chat windows up for a full workday and didn't see any lasting ghosting, but the risk is still there for people who leave static HUDs on for days at a time. Refresh rate and response time are often the biggest draw for competitive gamers, and 240Hz with a 0.03 milliseconds gray-to-gray claim sounds like a cheat code. In fast-paced shooters, I did notice smoother motion and fewer motion artifacts compared to a typical 144Hz monitor. The G-Sync compatibility meant I could let the GPU handle frame timing without tearing, and FreeSync Premium Pro added a safety net for lower frame rates. The practical upshot: if you're playing at 144Hz or higher, the monitor actually feels like it's keeping up with you, which can translate to a tiny but real edge in Twitch-based titles. However, the benefit shrinks if your PC can't push more than 100 frames per second in modern titles. You'll still get a beautiful picture, just not the full 240Hz advantage. Another point that often gets overlooked is the adjustable stand. Samsung lets you tilt, swivel, and even raise the screen a bit, which is essential for a monitor of this width. I found that a slight upward tilt reduced the neck strain that can happen when you're looking at a curve that wraps around you. The stand, however, is a bit bulkier than the typical 27-inch stand and occupies a sizable portion of the desk surface. If you're planning to mount the monitor on a wall or an articulating arm, you'll need a VESA-compatible bracket that can handle the weight, something not everyone has on hand. Now, let's talk price versus value. The Odyssey G93SC lands in the premium segment, and the sticker price reflects that. For someone who already invests heavily in a high-end GPU and wants a display that can keep pace, the combination of ultra-wide field of view, OLED color fidelity, and high refresh rate can feel justified. That's why the product carries a 4.1 star rating from over 500 reviews. It's generally well received by people who needed exactly this mix. But if your primary use is office work, web browsing, or occasional streaming, a more modest 27 or 32-inch IPS panel will likely deliver comparable satisfaction for a fraction of the cost. In those cases, you're paying for a size and technology you may never truly need. A hidden trade-off shows up when you consider power consumption. OLED panels draw more power than typical LED LCDs, especially when displaying bright, colorful content across the whole screen. On a typical gaming session lasting 3 hours, my electricity meter ticked a bit higher than it would have with a conventional 27-inch monitor. For the average user, the difference isn't huge on the monthly bill, but it's a factor if you're environmentally conscious or running a low-power workstation. One practical strength that becomes evident after a week of daily use is the monitor's handling of multiple inputs. The G93SC offers a decent selection of HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort ports, allowing you to hook up a console, a gaming PC, and even a media box without constantly swapping cables. I kept my PS5 plugged in for couch coop sessions.